Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Influence Economy. I am your host, Shayna Davis. Like always, I am so happy that you are here today. And like always, I have a favor to ask you. So, wherever it is that you are listening to this episode, I want you to take a screenshot. And with that screenshot, I want you to post it on your social media, tag us here at Shayna Rattler Davis. And then I just want to hear your biggest aha moment or your biggest takeaway from this episode. And again, the reason why I do that is because, in my opinion, I just feel like far too many women are living below their profit potential. And unfortunately, everybody doesn't know where to start in order to change that. So, the more times that you share these episodes, the more times that women can actually be exposed to the shifts that are going to be required in order for them to own their influence. So, thank you so much for being willing to share that. Well, today I am flying solo and we are digging into is something that separates brands that get invited to the table from the ones that are still knocking. We're going to be talking about why thought leadership brands win, especially when it comes to leveraging PR, media visibility, and speaking engagements for serious business growth. And spoiler alert, if you're still positioning yourself as just an expert, you're leaving real money and major stages on the table. So let's get into it. We're going to be talking all things thought leadership this month. If this is your first time listening this month, you're going to want to go back and listen to the previous two episodes as well. But here's the deal: experts inform and thought leaders influence. We're coming out of an era, and we're very much so still in the era, which is why I'm teaching what it is that I'm teaching today, that we should have a personal brand. And I do believe that we should maximize the opportunity and potential from being a personal brand, but we've been taught to be experts. We've been taught to be experts in one small area. And I think what we need to be focusing on is our thought leadership, not just your small area of expertise, but what is your thought leadership? Because, in my opinion, that's what is going to really help you to be able to really turn your influence into serious income. Because experts get booked, thought leaders get remembered and paid at a higher level. So, let's break this down. An expert, they might have credentials, knowledge, and experience. That's great. They're amazing at what they do, but they're usually waiting to be discovered. A thought leader, on the other hand, shapes how people think. They lead conversations. They get featured in media not just for what they do, but for the perspective they bring. They don't just show up on podcasts, they host the panels, headline the summits, and sit on advisory boards. And that's not by accident, that is by strategy. And so I hope you see the difference between just being an expert and being a thought leader. I want to take myself, for example. Although I've grown this podcast to the top 3% in the world, and although podcasting is central to my strategy, it's only central to the strategy in one area of my business. I don't position myself as a podcasting expert. I position myself and I brand myself as someone who understands influence, feminine influence to be precise. And so if you look at how I serve podcast hosts and how I show small business owners how they should be taking their podcast to grow a bigger business ecosystem, that's my expert brand. And that's just one way that I serve the arena of influence. But my broader thought leadership is the fact that I believe that once a woman treats her influence like an asset, that's when everything changes, right? So let's talk PR and media. When we think about what journalists are looking for, they're not just looking for another expert tip on productivity or marketing. They might bring you on, but that's not going to be as enticing as a fresh take that is going to cut through the noise of everything that is just repeated and recycled and redundant over and over and over again. So if your brand sounds like everyone else's in your industry and you're using the same language and saying the same things that everyone else in your industry is saying, you're just blending into a very crowded feed. Whereas if we look at what thought leaders do, thought leaders, they get quoted in places like Forbes, Fast Company, or Inc. because they say something different. And strategic media visibility like that can completely shift your business. It builds credibility and authority fast. So, again, take what it is that I just said. My guiding belief statement and what it is that I'm saying is I'm not just saying like have products, have services. What I'm saying is listen, women, if you will begin to treat your influence like the asset it is, if you will nurture it and leverage it, that's when everything changes. That's when women tap into wealth. That's when they recognize the power of being seen. That is much different than what other experts out there are saying, which is why I get invited onto so many media platforms. It's why to date I have been featured in over 500 media outlets because I'm not just regurgitating what you hear everywhere else. I actually have a strong point of view, which is my thought leadership. And that's what I promote, it's what I package, and it's how I position myself. So now let's talk speaking. You don't land premium speaking opportunities, especially paid ones, just by having a resume, by saying where you've been, saying what it is that you've done. You land them by having a message, a point of view, a powerful positioning that makes event organizers say, we need her on this stage. Again, I say, listen, there is a new currency. Influence is the new currency for women, but only when you treat it like an asset. You see how that gets the attention of speaking, people who have speaking engagements, people who are planning meetings for corporations because they're like, huh, that's interesting. I wonder what exactly she means by influence as a currency. I wonder what she means by this is a new era of success, right? So you need to be the person who's not just teaching, you need to be the person who's transforming how it is that people speak. So we're, or how it is that people think, I'm sorry. We are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to continue to talk about how you can build a thought leadership brand that sells. We'll be right back. Ready to turn your influence into income? Take the Influence Growth Assessment. In just minutes, you'll uncover the next steps to grow your visibility, attract bigger opportunities, and boost your profitability. Visit myinfluencestyle.com to take the assessment today. A new era of success is waiting. Let's make it yours. Welcome back. So today we're talking about why thought leadership brands win, especially how PR, media, and stages can convert for you if you are building a thought leadership brand and not just an expert brand. So how do you make the shift? If you're listening to this and you're like, "Oops, my bad." I have been building an expert brand, but I have not necessarily been thinking about how I position myself as a thought leader and how I shift in to a thought leader brand instead of just an expert brand. First of all, you're not alone. Most people aren't. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm sharing this conversation so that we can begin to win in what I call the influence economy and so that you can win on your terms. So, how do you make the shift? First, you have to clarify your unique perspective. So, what are you willing to say that others are not? What conversation are you leading in your space? My coach calls it a guiding belief statement. What is your guiding belief statement? You've heard mine, but I'll say it again. My guiding belief is that influence is the new women for currency is the new currency for women, but only when we treat it like an asset. So what is your guiding belief? What how can you be disruptive in your industry, right? So you need to think about what is your point of view? What is your perspective? And more importantly, what is the perspective that others are not saying? Okay? And then second, you have to package your message like an asset. Media features and speaking slots are earned, but only when your positioning is clear, powerful, and relevant. So, what do? You take your guiding belief statement, and if you don't feel like it packs a punch, if you don't feel like it's powerful, if you don't feel like it's clear and relevant, then take what it is that you're trying to say and then go to your favorite AI platform like ChatGPT and don't just type it in, talk it in. Talk in what it is that you believe, what it is that your perspective is, and then ask it to give you a clear, powerful, and relevant positioning statement. Tell them that you want a guiding belief statement of how your perspective can stand out in the industry, and then be willing to massage that, practice that, try that on until it is something that you actually feel comfortable with. So, first, clarify your unique perspective. Second, package your messaging like an asset. And then third, show up with intention, because a thought leader doesn't just go live or post content, especially not randomly. They show up with strategy, consistency, and aligned visibility across the brand, so that you're going to then take that guiding belief statement that you come up with, or you may already know what it is, and then you're going to start to be a lot more strategic and intentional about how it is that you talk about what you do. You're going to be a lot more willing and courageous to stand up and be bold. You're going to recognize that you should be diabolical. I heard someone say years ago, when I got in business, like, I don't want anyone to be black or white. I only want people to be black or white about my brand. I don't want any vanilla. I don't want any gray. I want you to hear my guiding belief statement, and I want you to 100% be on board with that, or I want you to 100% be off board with that, because I only want people following my brand that are going to be potential collaborators, that are going to be potential power partners, that are going to be potential clients, right? And so, if your guiding belief statement is distinctive and disruptive, you're going to be able to do the same thing for yourself. But here's the part that people miss: PR and media attention, they're nice for the ego, but thought leadership done right drives profit. Not saying that you can't make money from an expert brand, but you're going to make so much more money by having a thought leadership brand, because speaking on the right stage, it can lead to corporate contracts, licensing deals, paid partnerships, consulting gigs, high-end clients, because it's not just about being seen, it's about being seen by the right people in the right way with the right message that moves them to action. And you can't do that if your brand still sounds like a well educated expert hoping someone notices. You've got to own the room before you enter it. That's the thought leadership advantage. So, the big question is, are you ready to turn your visibility and influence into serious income, or are you still blending in with the noise? If you're not sure, or if you are sure and you want to scale your influence fast, then it's time to take the influence growth assessment. It is a quiz that I created. It's a quick and strategic quiz, and it's going to show you exactly where you are in your influence journey and what to do next to build a thought leadership brand that attracts media, closes big deals, and lands you on stages that matter. So you can head to myinfluencestyle.com and take the influence growth assessment right now. Let's find out how bankable your brand really is. So that's it for this episode. If it sparks something, I want you to share it with a fellow leader or entrepreneur, because this is not just for entrepreneurs. This is also for leaders inside of brand, inside of other people's companies. You are still a brand even if you work for someone else. And it is important for you too to build your thought leadership inside of the company. So share this with everyone who is ready to upgrade their influence game. And remember, you're not here to play small. You're here to shape the conversation. So until next time, keep building your influence and making it bankable. Bye bye.